looking in at this happy juncture. 'But what a queer business this is, isn't it? Noggs has lived in this house now going on for 5 years, and nobody has ever been to see him before, within the memory of the oldest inhabitant.' 'It's a strange time of night to be called away, sir, certainly,' said the collector; 'and the behaviour of Mr. Noggs himself is, to say the least of it, mysterious.' 'Well, so it is,' rejoined Crowl; 'and I'll tell you what's more. I think these two geniuses, whoever they are, have run away from somewhere.' 'What makes you think that, sir?' demanded the collector, who seemed, by a tacit understanding, to have been chosen and elected mouthpiece to the company. 'You have no reason to suppose that they have run away from anywhere without paying the rates and taxes due, I hope?' Mr. Crowl, with a look of some contempt, was about to enter a general protest against the payment of rates or taxes under any circumstances, when he was checked by a timely whisper from Kenwigs, and several frowns and winks from Mrs. K., which providentially stopped him. 'Why, the fact is,' said Crowl, who had been listening at Newman's door with all his might and main, 'the fact is, that they have been talking so loud that they quite disturbed me in my room, and so I couldn't help catching a word here and a word there, and all I heard certainly seemed to refer to their having bolted from some place or other. I don't wish to alarm Mrs. Kenwigs, but I hope they haven't come from any jail or hospital, and brought away a fever, or some unpleasantness of that sort, which might be catching for the children.' Mrs. Kenwigs was so overpowered by this supposition, that it needed all the tender attentions of Miss Petowker, of the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane, to restore her to anything like a state of calmness; not to mention the assiduity of Mr. Kenwigs, who held a fat smelling bottle to his lady's nose, until it became matter of some doubt whether the tears which coursed down her face were the result of feelings or sal volatile. The ladies, having expressed their sympathy, singly and separately, fell, according to custom, into a little chorus of soothing expressions, among which such condolences as 'Poor dear!' 'I should feel just the same if I was her,' 'To be sure it's a very trying thing,' and 'Nobody but a mother knows what a mother's feelings is,' were among the most prominent, and the most frequently repeated. In short, the opinion of the company was so clearly manifested, that Mr. Kenwigs was on the point of repairing to Mr. Noggs's room to demand an explanation, and had, indeed, swallowed a preparatory glass of punch with great inflexibility and steadiness of purpose, when the attention of all present was diverted by a new and terrible surprise. This was nothing less than the sudden pouring forth of a rapid succession of the shrillest and most piercing screams from an upper story, and to all appearance from the very 2 pair back, in which the infant Kenwigs was at that moment enshrined. They were no sooner audible than Mrs. Kenwigs, opining that a strange cat had come in and sucked the baby's breath while the girl was asleep, made for the door, wringing her hands and shrieking dismally, to the great consternation and confusion of the company. 'Mr. Kenwigs, see what it is. Make haste!' cried the sister, laying violent hands upon Mrs. Kenwigs, and holding her back by force. 'Oh, don't twist about so, dear, or I can never hold you.' 'My baby, my blessed, 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 blessed baby!' screamed Mrs. Kenwigs, making every blessed louder than the last. 'My own darling, sweet, innocent Lillyvick! Oh, let me go to him, let me go!' Pending the utterance of these frantic cries, and the wails and lamentations of the 4 little girls, Mr. Kenwigs rushed upstairs to the room whence the sounds proceeded, at the door of which he encountered Nicholas, with the child in his arms, who darted out with such violence that the anxious father was thrown down 6 stairs, and alighted on the nearest landing place, before he had found time to open his mouth to ask what was the matter. 'Don't be alarmed,' cried Nicholas, running down. 'Here it is. It's all out. It's all over. Pray compose yourselves. There's no harm done.' And with these, and 1,000 other assurances, he delivered the baby, whom in his hurry he had carried upside down, to Mrs. Kenwigs, and ran back to assist Mr. Kenwigs, who was rubbing his head very hard, and looking much bewildered by his tumble. Reassured by this cheering intelligence, the company in some degree recovered from their fears, which had been productive of some most singular instances of a total want of presence of mind. Thus the bachelor friend had for a long time supported in his arms Mrs. Kenwigs's sister instead of Mrs. Kenwigs, and the worthy Mr. Lillyvick had been actually seen, in the perturbation of his spirits, to kiss Miss Petowker several times behind the room door, as calmly as if nothing distressing were going forward. 'It's a mere nothing,' said Nicholas, returning to Mrs. Kenwigs. 'The little girl, who was watching the child, being tired, I suppose, fell asleep and set her hair on fire.' 'Oh, you malicious little wretch!' cried Mrs. Kenwigs, impressively shaking her forefinger at the small unfortunate, who might be 13 years old, and was looking on with a singed head and a frightened face. 'I heard her cries,' continued Nicholas, 'and ran down, in time to prevent her setting fire to anything else. You may depend upon it that the child is not hurt, for I took it off the bed myself, and brought it here to convince you.' This brief explanation over, the infant, who, as he was christened after the collector, rejoiced in the names of Lillyvick Kenwigs, was partially suffocated under the caresses of the audience, and squeezed to his mother's bosom until he roared again. The attention of the company was then directed, by a natural transition, to the little girl who had had the audacity to burn her hair off, and who, after receiving sundry small slaps and pushes from the more energetic of the ladies, was mercifully sent home, the ninepence with which she was to have been rewarded being escheated to the Kenwigs family. 'And whatever we are to say to you, sir,' exclaimed Mrs. Kenwigs, addressing young Lillyvick's deliverer, 'I'm sure I don't know.' 'You need say nothing at all,' replied Nicholas. 'I have done nothing to found any very strong claim upon your eloquence, I'm sure.' 'He might have been burnt to death if it hadn't been for you, sir,' simpered Miss Petowker. 'Not very likely, I think,' replied Nicholas, 'for there was abundance of assistance here, which must have reached him before he had been in any danger.' 'You will let us drink your health, anyvays, sir,' said Mr. Kenwigs, motioning towards the table. 'In my absence, by all means,' rejoined Nicholas, with a smile. 'I have had a very fatiguing journey, and should be most indifferent company; a far greater check upon your merriment than a promoter of it, even if I kept awake, which I think very doubtful. If you will allow me, I'll return to my friend Mr. Noggs, who went upstairs again when he found nothing serious had occurred. Good night.' Excusing himself in these terms from joining in the festivities, Nicholas took a most winning farewell of Mrs. Kenwigs and the other ladies, and retired after making a very extraordinary impression upon the company. 'What a delightful young man!' cried Mrs. Kenwigs. 'Uncommon gentlemanly, really,' said Mr. Kenwigs. 'Don't you think so, Mr. Lillyvick?' 'Yes,' said the collector, with a dubious shrug of his shoulders. 'He's gentlemanly, very gentlemanly in appearance.' 'I hope you don't see anything against him, uncle?' inquired Mrs. Kenwigs. 'No, my dear,' replied the collector. 'No. I trust he may not turn out, well, no matter. My love to you, my dear, and long life to the baby.' 'Your namesake,' said Mrs. Kenwigs, with a sweet smile. 'And I hope a worthy namesake,' observed Mr. Kenwigs, willing to propitiate the collector. 'I hope a baby as will never disgrace his godfather, and as may be considered, in arter years, of a piece with the Lillyvicks whose name he bears. I do say, and Mrs. Kenwigs is of the same sentiment and feels it as strong as I do, that I consider his being called Lillyvick one of the greatest blessings and honours of my existence.' 'The greatest blessing, Kenwigs,' murmured his lady. 'The greatest blessing,' said Mr. Kenwigs, correcting himself. 'A blessing that I hope, one of these days, I may be able to deserve.' This was a politic stroke of the Kenwigses, because it made Mr. Lillyvick the great head and fountain of the baby's importance. The good gentleman felt the delicacy and dexterity of the touch, and at once proposed the health of the gentleman, name unknown, who had signalised himself that night by his coolness and alacrity. 'Who, I don't mind saying,' observed Mr. Lillyvick as a great concession, 'is a good looking young man enough, with manners